The behaviors often criticized in black communities today, gangs, crime, neglect, what people shorthand as a ghetto culture, are not isolated choices. They are products of conditions engineered and reinforced over generations. Earlier black generations in the West lived in environments where every day meant exposure to hostility, systemic exclusion from housing, work, and education, constant surveillance by the state, and open threats from the dominant population. In such an environment, showing weakness made you a target. Survival required vigilance, hardness, and distrust. When these responses become normalized across generations, they solidify into cultural patterns. What began as protection turns into aggression. What began as resourcefulness turns into hustling and crime. What began as community defense turns into gangs. These are distortions of survival strategies, but they still trace back to the same origin, a system that forced people to live as if every day was enemy territory. The modern viewer often collapses all of this into stereotypes, describing only the visible outcomes. They say black fatigue to express exhaustion with these behaviors, but what they are really reacting to are the accumulated effects of systemic hostility that their own society produced. The system created conditions of instability, and then its descendants complain about the symptoms. This is not about dignity or pride or morality. Those are surface constructs people use to position themselves in conflict. The reality is simpler. Behaviors are manufactured responses to manufactured conditions. The racial hierarchy built by the West created the hostility, and the hostility shaped the culture. What people call ghetto is not innate. It is the residue of survival under a hostile order that never dissolved, only shifted its form. Pride, morals, dignity, these are just extensions of ego. They serve no purpose outside the theater of human conflict, where people construct enemies to justify their existence. Ego needs opposition. Without it, it has no script to follow. So people manufacture dilemmas, fight them, and then congratulate themselves for surviving what they created. This is how racial hierarchies formed. White societies, driven by ego and dominance, manufactured enemies out of other races, and entire systems of power were built around that invented opposition. Later, those who resisted did so through the same mechanism, an ego reacting to another ego. And once they gain power, the cycle repeats. The defender becomes the new author of enemies. The modern black experience of vigilance and enemy consciousness is not separate from this pattern. It is an inherited posture born from responding to the enemies manufactured by white power. But even this survival stance can harden into its own process of manufacturing enemies. Ego doesn't dissolve under oppression, it shifts forms, creating new theaters of conflict wherever power allows. Human nature doesn't need truth to sustain conflict, it only needs an ego that requires an adversary. History, race, morality, these are just costumes for the same play.